If you're listening to this episode, make sure to stick around to the end to hear a special performance by our guest. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Revolutionize the Stage podcast presented to you by VenewLive. I'm Emily Heidel, and we have our first artist guest here on the podcast,
Hello.
Jang. Hello.
Hello.
Nice of you to be here with us.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah.
Good. Well, maybe do you want to give a short introduction of who you are?
Sure. My name's Jang. I am South Korean, but for the most of my life, I've been traveling abroad, been living and studying abroad, and so a lot of my influences are from everywhere, just China, some from America, the UK, and so I've been privileged enough to meet a lot of different great people, and get to experience a lot of different great music. And I fell in love with music in the middle of just living my own life, and now I pretty much fallen in love with science as well as music. So as a job, I'm working as a quality assurance in a biopharmaceutical company, and I am also a musician in some senses, but we can talk a little bit more about that later on.
Yeah. Well, Jang and I met at a lovely establishment in Itaewon, a bar called Pumpkin. Good times.
Yep.
It was very crowded.
Yes.
Funny group of people. But since then, you did tell me the second time we met that you do enjoy music and you create your own music, and you reached out on behalf of your first album, right?
It's sort of my first indie rock album.
Your first indie rock album.
I've worked on two other two albums, which were more sort of darker and sort of prog rock, folk rock based albums, which I could share. But it's under the name Rev Hill, and one's called Good Nature, and the other's called I Might Be Food for Thought. I Might Be Wrong. It's quite verbose, but those are the two albums that I've worked on, and there are also other singles that I worked on, which are all mainly dark, sort of prog rock albums, rock songs. But this is the first one, which is actually sort of gleeful and sort of bright.
Okay.
And I wanted to do something gleeful and bright because it was so upbeat in general and so bright that I just wanted to have that new experience.
Wait, so prog rock, it's progressive rock,
yes,
right?
Progressive rock.
What does that mean? I'm not familiar with the rock realm at all.
It's, in certain senses, mean really nothing, because it's trying to say that they're trying to be progressive, which means they're trying to do something sort of experimental, something that's sort of out of the norm, all that kind of stuff. But that's all really to do with, the ears of the people, certain things do sound progressive to people. They might not necessarily sound progressive to you. And so the progressive rock genre has been generally been categorized for like a lot of bands. A lot of bands are known for prog rock. So yeah. Radiohead's one example.
Okay. Interesting. And then the other one was, you said prog rock and
indie rock. Folk rock.
Folk rock.
Yes.
What's an example of folk rock?
Folk rock is anything sort of involving...
Like the Eagles?
The Eagles do folk rock at certain times, yes, for sure. But folk rock is anything to do with like using the old classical instruments, including like the violin, the fiddle, cello, or the lutes even. So
I'm going to say something, and it's probably going to sorry, rock fans. I know Bob Dylan's an amazing, artist.
Yeah.
Does he do folk rock?
He is absolutely folk rock.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he is a singer-songwriter, and he does his own sort of guitar and singing, and the lyrics, are amazing. But the stuff he does involve a lot of a lot of old classical instruments as well.
Okay, that's good to know. For people that are that listen to this podcast, you may be a rock, aficionado. Maybe you aren't, but I'm definitely not. So I'm glad that you have explained this and put it into layman's terms for us non-rock aficionados.
Sure.
But you are now doing indie rock, or this album is indie rock,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much, more or less. I would sort of categorize it as comedy rock as well. Indie is also sort of a
Comedy rock.
general term.
That's a thing?
Comedy rock is a thing. It's definitely a
What?
thing.
Okay.
There are so many different genres in rock. It's just
What is comedy rock? I assume it doesn't mean exactly what
it pretty
means?
much is
It means?
exactly what it means.
Ah.
People may not really get the comedy in my songs, but in snippets, there are certain times where I'll put in something completely non sequitur or just really sort of feels slapstick. You know what I mean?
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would love for you to give us an example of it in one of your songs so that we can know. But
Okay.
before we get to that, so a mix of comedy and a mix of indie rock. And why did you? Okay, first of all, we haven't even introduced the album. That is my fault. The name of the album is
It's AMIDORI HUNKIDORI.
okay, and that does sound. It's a funny name.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning behind that name?
Because, well, it's one of the reasons is because the album is comedy, in some senses. It's a comedy that I really wanted to express my own sort of creativity, and comedy is actually one of the hardest things to actually be creative with. But it calls for a lot of different possibilities. That's one of the reasons why it's so hard. And people might take it the wrong way or the right way. And I just really, really wanted to challenge myself and do something that's fun, imaginative, as can be. I admit it's a very, very difficult process, but I had fun all the way through it.
How long did it take for you to create it?
It took me, I conceived it 7 or 8 odd years ago. It's been a while since I've actually conceived the general backbone of the album. But I actually started recording it in March this year. And so it took me about 6 months, pretty much without stop.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Time is flying. The fact that you just said March was 6 months ago, like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I can't believe that I finished this album. I mean,
in 6 months, that's pretty quick, right?
That's a test of time. So
Yeah. So, and actually, now I'm thinking about it. You said you've worked on 2 other albums. Did it take as long as this one, or shorter, or?
It took shorter because at that time, I wasn't as experienced, and I wasn't really aware of a lot of the factors that I had to take into account when I was recording at the time.
Like what?
Like the overall space of the recording booth and how I sort of dampen my overall room, because the overall acoustics of the room can really cause for a lot of reverb, or make it so that it feels snug without any echo or reverb. All that kind of stuff counts to a T. And in this particular album, I definitely did pay attention to those, but there was only so much that I can control. And it's with every recording. I mean, there is no perfect recording, but I'm not saying that this particular album is absolutely studio quality, but it's a quality that I stood by with, and I really found fascinating in its own right.
So I know that there's when people are like, I came out with like a studio album compared to like an EP. I know studio albums really it's a lot of money to put into, because it's a literal studio that you're booking out.
Absolutely.
To me, like listening to your album, like I was listening, I first turned it on and I was like, oh, this is like really nice quality. I couldn't tell the difference, but like I'm sure, like you said, someone with a trained musical producing ear, like you could tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, someone who is trained, trained people could really tell the differences. I mean, I recorded it myself, so I know I should know pretty much. But there is a defined difference. But then there were moments. I mean, it depends on the time when I hear it again. But at times I do sort of wish that there was this studio quality that I stuck with and contacted a producer or something so that we can work with it. And I'll have less hands to work on different things and just concentrate on one thing.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot more synergistic, I guess.
How many people were involved in creating it?
So I'm the only person who actually produced the music.
So you're playing the drums in the background too?
So the drums were made using a really good software called TuneTrack.
Oh.
They have really, really good sound quality pre-recorded drums, which were basically recorded in this really huge American studio. I believe it was somewhere in California. The other version's like a lower version, and it was actually recorded in Abbey Road Studio.
Oh, wow.
So this is supposed to be sort of higher grade program, but then it really is to do with whether you want it in a big studio or a small studio. So most studios could be better because of the less reverb in the sound.
Oh, so bigger. You would think a bigger. I mean, it makes sense, but you would think anything that's bigger, like a bigger studio, would give you would be higher quality.
Not necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily so.
So what's the point in having a bigger studio then?
If you have a huge
Band?
huge ensemble or a band where you have like a string section and you're recording this OST for a movie or something, it's more convenient to contain them, I guess, as well as the reverb also could add to the musical soundingness, I suppose.
I see.
Of the whole thing, but then it depends on what you need. It depends on what you want in the sound, I suppose.
Okay. Interesting. Wow. So you were really the only one. So I was like, when I heard the drums, I was like, oh, I guess he had like someone else like on the side helping him or like to mix it. So you were literally doing every single part.
Yeah. So the composition of the drums have been done by myself, but then the performance was done by the computer, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 2 people involved. I'm kidding.
Thanks to my MSI.
Yeah, exactly. AI. Where are you? Okay. So you were the only one involved in it. So you. Okay, also, sorry, my questions are jumping around as I'm thinking of them, but, if you guys listen to AMIDORI HUNKIDORI, which can be found on Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Spotify, you will hear that a lot of it is instrumental, but some of it there's lyric. I would say like half and half is lyrics, half is like instrumental.
Sure.
And I will say some of the lyrics, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, you start, like, you'll be singing and then you start talking. And then about, like, making tea and how delicious it is or something. And then another one, you, like, have, like, random little, like, sounds inserted. Like, how did that come together? That, for each song, I guess, the vibe.
I think in this day and age, if you look into a lot of indie stuff, a lot of underground stuff, there are people who especially become experimental with the sound, but also with the lyrics as well. And so you don't want to stay with the norm of trying to come up with a meaning to the lyrics, I suppose.
Okay.
Because if you try too much, it becomes a sort of a construct that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
And so I tried something comedy because comedy was outside the norm. Nobody tries to be funny with lyrics, normally speaking. So
in comedy.
In music.
In music.
Nobody,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're right. Yeah.
To think outside the box in that way, I wanted to introduce some funny lyrics to raise the intrigue bar, I suppose, in the songs.
What do you want people to feel when they listen to your music?
I wanted them to feel tickled. Like it really is. Just
physically tickled or just like, funny, chuckle.
Maybe both.
Okay.
Just when they listen to it, they just don't care. They just listen, and then all of a sudden they hear just really off the spot, just bonkers crazy stuff. Like, well, not bonkers crazy, but it's off. something
It's
is
off.
off. It's wrong.
Oh, so you want people to be like, this isn't right, like, or
Yeah.
not right, but like this is strange.
Yeah, this is strange, or yeah, if it's wrong, it could be better. I don't know, but just something strange, and then it catches their attention, you know, and they say, oh, ew, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Okay. Who wants their album to be like received as ew? That's very interesting. And like you said, a lot of people in music it's usually they try to be deep, or it tries to be like more and more these days. I don't know. If I'm being honest, I'm the type of person that listens to music for the beats, and I rarely listen. Like, it takes me 6 months to be like, like that's what they're saying, really?
I get
Maybe
that,
I don't
yeah.
want to listen to that song, but then I keep listening to it, you know?
Yeah, it's really tiring to actually try to find the meaning of anything. And so trying to get deep into a song gets really tiring. It gets tiring with any kind of art. And so to be really all that perceptive is sort of impossible, in my opinion. And so to help facilitate that sort of perceptiveness, I think, is the better way for a musician. It's the musician's job, the artist's job to do so.
Okay. So, and thinking of the different sounds that are in your album, a lot of it does give like a rock sort of vibe, or it is rock, like you said, which I really enjoyed. I actually saved a couple of them on my liked things, playlist on Spotify. But there's this one song that starts off really, really, really soft. It's like a bossa nova type, but it's not the bossa nova. Bossa. Maybe I'm saying that right. Bossa, like, how do I say, like, there's a song that has the name Bossa in it.
I can't even really remember my songs. What?
Well, there's the one right before that is
Bossa Blues.
Yeah, before
Bossa
Bossa Blues, there's another song that it's really, really, really light. Really
Papaya.
Yes, that song. And I was like, wow, this sounds really interesting. And I was like, what am I listening to? It was really, really soft, and like, I don't know, I felt like I was somewhere in Brazil, like, but it was like the sound I was hearing was way off in the distance. It was really nice.
I was actually very intrigued by the Portuguese language, and so part of it was to introduce that sort of percussive sound, not necessarily introduce the Portuguese language, because I think it has more elements of Korean than any other language, to be honest, and that's what it's sort of supposed to be. And so the whole album is sort of 85% English, 15% gibberish, and with that gibberish, I wanted to make something musical. How
did the gibberish come together?
The gibberish came naturally. I mean, with all ideas, it starts with walking somewhere, just pacing, because if you pace, you really have all that free space within your mind to think about all kinds of things, and throughout that process, I came up with the general sort of chords for the song, and I really wanted that sort of soft kind of jazzy voice that to accompany with that, and create a whole kind of Havana's feel to it, and it's I had a very specific percussive sound in the vocals that I really, really wanted, and so naturally the lyrics came to me just like that. It's not specifically like that, but it's in the general right direction. I used DistroKid to distribute my music, and so that's how.
DistroKid?
Yeah, DistroKid is like the platform for distributing your own album and stuff, and so that's how it goes. Does it cost money to do that? It's fairly cheap. It's convenient for a lot of musicians.
So does it put it out on every single platform, or just like a couple?
Pretty much all the main ones.
Okay.
And that's how I got it on iTunes and Spotify.
So DistroKid or Kit?
Kid.
DistroKid.
Okay.
DistroKid. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And what was your reasoning for choosing to make 85% of the album in English, compared to like maybe mixing in Korean that and
well,
like that?
It's simply because that one song, I thought definitely could benefit from not putting in English. Well, at certain points there will be a little bit of English, but it would be predicated on a completely different sort of Lord of the Rings kind of lore language that I would want it. Not saying that it is, but it's a language that I made up. So.
Oh, wait, actually?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just joking.
Oh, okay. Comedy. I see. Wow, Lord of the Rings. You know what? That would be quite interesting to. I feel like that's something like.
Because Lord of the Rings is actually sort of sophisticated, and so I tried to put in some sophistication into this, although I guess there's only so much you can do in a 5-minute song, 6-minute song.
Was there a story you were trying to tell, like a comedic story you were trying to tell throughout the album at all? Or did you want it was kind of just like a hodgepodge of like, these are some songs I think like,
Yeah, it doesn't really connect together into a big narrative. They all have stories of their own, I suppose.
I see. Were you feeling, is there any song that you can think of where you were feeling a particular way and you wanted to write that song because of that feeling? Or is it kind of, like you said, like you want to just like chilling?
It's always the melody. The melody always comes first. Well, the overall sound comes first. Like something catchy comes up, then I'll just keep it to the side and use it for later. And so the meaning doesn't really come necessarily together. I tried putting in meaning in some other songs, but not necessarily these ones.
So there wasn't any sort of like overwhelming emotion for any of the songs that that you can remember that sparked the sound that you wanted to come out of such a song?
It's not anything sort of emotional in the sense that it's intense sadness or anything, but maybe glee, maybe sort of swagger in certain senses.
Which song had the swagger?
Oh, Never Gonna Say No.
Never Gonna Say No. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Because that's a very sort of country twang kind of sound, and a lot of hard rock in it as well. And so together I wanted I actually had a music video idea for that, and that sort of ties in with the album cover as well. The jacket is supposed to be like a scene from the music video that I have as an idea.
Oh.
And so I actually couldn't accomplish a lot of other things that I wanted to in this album, which tie in together. And it's basically the whole thing is shot in Brazil or Portugal.
Okay.
And there's this kid who visits a supermarket and gets this chocolate bar, and he eats that, and then he gets activated,
Oh, okay.
And then the music kicks in, and he starts skipping along the road, like an adult, basically, like John Travolta in Saturday Night.
Yeah. Favorite.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff.
I see. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, the whole thing is like a chocolate bar advertisement.
Eat a Snickers.
Yeah.
You're not yourself.
Yeah.
When you're
you feel
hungry.
better after a Snickers.
You'll feel better. That is not a sponsorship or not an ad. We are not sponsored by Snickers, but if Snickers wants to sponsor us, we will eat all of your candy.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, you're good. And I think towards the beginning when I asked, actually, guys, as we were talking, I will definitely show a picture. I would have already put it in of the album cover. Which, yeah, like when I first saw it, I was like, "What is this? Did you draw it?"
I got another person to actually work on it. I actually used Fiverr to find the right person to actually make this artwork. It was a really hard process because I had a very specific image in mind, as you can tell. And eventually I got this person called Irit Mogilevsky, I think. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. But she's from Israel, and she actually worked on this album with me consistently and got this, wonderful work of art.
How long did it take for you to go back and forth? Because I'm very familiar with when you're working in that sense. It's just like a back and forth and back. Can you change this? Can you change that? Yeah.
to be honest, I also worked with other artists before her and was not satisfied with it. And so after like draft after draft, it only made me realize in the middle that it was just going in the wrong direction, you know? And so I changed like 2 times or something. And she was also in that moment where I wasn't sure, because I'm not an artist myself. I don't draw stuff. And so I don't know the overall process of how exactly the artwork comes to light.
I see.
I had my doubts, but in the end, I shouldn't have, you know, and good thing that I stuck by with it.
So ATO Entertainment, like you said, is the label that you're signed under, and they are acting as a distributor for you.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, you know, a lot of people do music for a hobby. I have a lot of friends that, you know, have their main career and then they have like a sort of side hustle. Is this something like that? Or is it more of a hobby where you just really enjoy it and you want to get your thoughts and art out there? Or is it something that, like, you know, if it kicks off, then I'll go with it type thing? And you're like really focusing on that.
With all honesty, it's I feel like it's a hobby at the moment. But the whole point of doing this is because it's been in my DNA forever, and it's also something original to me. It's all of the stuff the music I produce and make are holistically my own, and so I have a feeling that I have something to share with the public on certain things. Certain emotions through the artworks that I make.
I see. Okay, so you're saying that you're going to continue to do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it does become something, then it does, right?
Whatever it becomes,
Whatever it becomes.
I'll follow it through.
Nice. I love that. Wow. So for other people who are kind of starting from scratch, similarly, but, you know, want to maybe be signed under, you know, a label of some sort, like, what kind of advice would you have for them, you know, if they want to continue to do music, like, from their heart and, you know, pursue that dream?
Well, I would say start from the roots. Really be honest to yourself and say what music really moves you. What really makes you feel this emotion and feels like there is a point to it, and really stick to that music and try and create that kind of feel for yourself. There's also a question of whether you are a performer as well as whether you are a songwriter. I think composition and performing are 2 different brains. And with performing as well as songwriting, there also comes a lot of thinking on the spot and improvising. But the way you go about them in those 2 different areas are quite different. And so in finding out yourself, I think you have to experiment, really just get your foot in the door and try out everything.
That's really good advice. Yeah, that's interesting. Composition and performing are 2 different brains, and that's why, yeah, a lot of producers do have, you know, they'll have their own songs, but it ends up being like they just stick to being producers, or they're like a DJ Khaled and they somehow get their name out there and they somehow get on the stage with the artist too. But yeah, that's cool. Interesting. He's definitely, yeah. So thank you so much, Jang. Thank you for all of that insight. And
it's been an honor to be here.
Yeah. So. Do you want to say anything about your album to people who have not listened to it yet, and why they should listen to it, and where they can find you as well?
If you just like your ears to be tickled, I strongly recommend my own album, AMIDORI HUNKIDORI, and it's pretty much on Spotify, iTunes, as well as in the Korean websites as well, Melon and Kakao. And if you really, really want to do these kinds of things, I really strongly recommend it, because it's a really liberating creative process.
Nice. Last question: what did your family and friends think about you doing this?
Oh, they're proud of me.
They're proud of you?
Yeah, including my friends.
Good.
But it's more of something that I did for myself. I feel
That's good.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the end, that's all that kind of really matters, and then everyone else begins to see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much, Jang, really, for your insight and telling us about literally every intricacy of your album. I feel like that's something so rare that maybe a lot of people sometimes don't want to reveal too much, but I feel like you gave us a lot of really honest thoughts and opinions on your process. So we really appreciate it. Also learned a little bit about rock today that I had no idea about. So very much appreciated.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yes. If you guys are listening to this, then if you're a returning listener, you know where to find us. But if you are not, if you are new to this podcast, you can find Revolutionize the Stage on VenewLive's YouTube. The video version of this podcast will be on our YouTube channel, and you can find and listen to Revolutionize the Stage on Spotify, Apple. We are on actually some Korean sites. We're on Naver Audio Clip, and we are on Podbang. And then we're also on all the American or international podcasting sites. You can follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Rev the Stage Pod. It will come up here if you're watching the video. REVTHESTAGEPOD, Rev the Stage Pod. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much, Jang.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
This is Jang, and this is straight out from my album, AMIDORI HUNKIDORI. It's called Mad Lip. Hunky-dory, sadly only. Life ain't quite what I realized was. Can't help seeking endless flavor. See the mad lip dance like a tool. That's fine. All right. This'll do. This'll do.